For my post reflection, I'm going to discuss some of the evidence that was observed during the field experience through the following question format. Um, the basic criteria that I ascertained from the registrar in order to create the schedules were the graduation requirements that the state sets forth, the number of students, and the number of teachers. So the graduation requirements dictate what's going to be on that schedule. And what I learned, which was of equal value, was the number of students. The number of students is directly relational to the number of teachers that are going to be required to teach those kids. For our particular school, Horn, last year we got a big load of students that we had not had before. We moved from about 500 students to 850 freshmen. And that number is consistent again this year. And so, as I was talking with Mr. Ballard, he indicated that with every every time that particular group of students, which are now sophomores, as they matriculate onward to junior status and then to senior status, um, every every group that they encounter has to make an adjustment. So when they get to their junior year, there'll be a new influx of English, uh, math, et cetera, teachers that will have to be added on to accommodate the size of the students. That was a big moment for me in terms of just understanding that sheer volume means hiring, which is great for teachers. We also talked about how that affected instruction, which was hiring of more teachers, also um, certifications, also the entire process being vetted out through our instructional dean, um, which if there was no instructional dean on the campus, I'm sure that would be another AP that would be looking at that information and relaying that to the principal, i.e., or relaying that to the registrar, so that he or she had adequate information in order to adjust and complete the master schedule. In terms of the staff and the personnel that is needed for the classes, um, I learned that our ratio here in Mesquite is between 25 to 30 to 1. Optimum is 25 to 1. But as a teacher, I know that there are more students that end up in the class, and that is clearly an approximate number. Um, so between 25 to 30 to 1. And in terms of what determines class sizes, I thought this was very interesting. Um, and I'm not sure how everyone does it, but here in Mesquite and at my particular school, Horn High School, we have PLCs. Um, we have a lot of coaches who double as a coach and a teacher, and we have a lot of CTE courses as well. So that was very interesting. One, the PLCs um, dictate volume because if all of the English teachers are out in first block, then that means that no freshmen, all the freshmen are they have to be somewhere and they're not in English. So that means that every other class is taking on the burden of the freshmen, at least the freshman classes that they're supposed to be inside. So if they're in algebra, then algebra classes are loaded in that first block or whatever the class may be. They're more than what would be the norm. But that goes for all the PLCs because all the core classes here at Horn are PLC'd. So algebra, English, biology, geometry. We also have our foreign languages PLC'd as well as our AP classes. The basic step-by-step process is purely a numbers process. So the number of students is divided by the number of teachers that would be teaching that section. For instance, English 1. So the number of students that need to take English 1 is divided by the number of teachers that would be teaching English 1. And that would equal out to how many sections that they needed to have. So for, I think he said for us, English 1, that it was about, I'm not sure if he was using last year's data or this year's, but it was like 550 divided by 8, which equaled out to like 23 sections of English. And then being able to ascertain who is going to do what teachers can only take 2 because they're also doing AP classes or pre-AP or dual credit like myself. So moving on to the factors that determine the class size. Again, that is just purely allocation of resources. The cafeteria has to be allocated to whatever. The gym has to be allocated for PE. The science labs have to be allocated to biology or chemistry or physics or aquatics, CTE, etc., etc. And so that also leads you into time frames and when and how many people can be in those rooms, etc., etc. In concern to the primary focus on maximizing student learning, Mr. Ballard indicated that making sure that there are effective teachers inside the classroom, which he indicated was something that needed to be done on the front end rather than on the back end, which I would agree. And I think I've already mentioned this before, but the process does allow for a teacher collaboration, primarily through the PLCs. Being a part of the PLC, I could verify that as well. I think that the policies and the practices protect the quality of instruction time mainly by making sure that there are highly qualified teachers in the classroom, that they are certified. Even if they are going through alternative certification, making sure that that certification is there. And again, teacher planning time is allocated to ensure collegial collaboration, not only through the PLCs, but also making sure that veteran teachers have the same periods off as the new teachers, or the mentor teacher or the lead teacher within a department is also paired up at the same time with the same off period as a brand new teacher or a new teacher to the school. Maybe they've been a veteran teacher before, but they're learning the process here at our school, which is, again, is Horn High School. In terms of the interview, I thought that things went well. Um, Initially, my primary interview was only 30 minutes. So I emailed my professors, and they indicated that, hey, you need at least 35 minutes. So I planned follow up questions to Mr. Ballard and went back in with those questions and had more nuanced discussions. Um, but that went well as well. Um, I think the only thing that I would have changed would have been to have had more follow up questions. There were some questions that I naturally followed up on because he gave such great information, and because he had intricate details that made me want to follow up with what he was saying. So I enjoyed that part of the discussion. It was very lively. So the only other part that I would have changed, which would have been to have more follow up questions on hand at that time, so that there would have been one continuous interview instead of two. But it worked out. Um, I'm not sure if there was any surprising information. Um, I did learn a lot of information in terms of how intricate the process is overall. Um, and so I'll utilize that information in order to dovetail into the last question, which was to tell how the experience transformed my practice as a school administrator. I think it gave me um, exquisite insight into the collaboration process. He mentioned several times that he relied on information from department heads, team leads, and the assistant principals who are over the core subjects in order to get information about the teachers themselves, their certifications, and who worked well with ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever the demographic that was that he needed the intel on. He relied heavily upon those other key participants and key leaders in order to get that information. So that was a big aha moment. Also, the value of the processes and the PLCs and the things like that that are in place that you don't understand as much from the vantage point of a teacher only, but you get more understanding about what those processes mean and how valuable they are to the instructional time for the students, as well as to the professional and collegial and collaboratory times for the teachers. Also, just the sheer communication volume that he had to go through in order to vet the whole process out and how nuanced that is. That was pretty astounding. Um, the other two factors that I thought were really key were resource management, because that was very key. Utilizing every single resource that he had to, not only from people to the actual classrooms, and then the administrative leadership. And knowing that he vetted the majority of these issues through other assistant principals, like I said, the instructional dean, as well as our head principal, which was Mr. Perkins.